I never thought my own children would betray me. The day Jack and Megan sat me down in my kitchen, the home where I raised them, to announce they had found me a nursing home. Their voices dripped with false concern, talking about safety and companionship while avoiding my eyes. They had already sold my house of 40 years without my knowledge or consent. I packed my suitcase silently, too shocked to cry. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from those we love most. The Sunday my life changed forever had begun like any other. I was preparing a pot roast, Frank's favorite recipe that I still made even 3 years after his passing. The familiar rhythm of chopping carrots and potatoes was soothing, a connection to 45 years of marriage and Sunday family dinners. When the doorbell rang, I wiped my hands on my apron and shuffled to answer it. At 67, my movements had slowed, but I was still fully capable of caring for myself in the Pennsylvania suburban home where Frank and I had built our lives. "Surprise, Mom!" Jack stood there, his 6-foot frame filling the doorway, with Megan right behind him, both wearing smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. "We thought we'd come for dinner," Megan said, stepping past me to kiss my cheek. "It smells wonderful in here." I felt a flutter of happiness. Since Frank died, visits from my children had become rare events. Jack lived just 30 minutes away, but was always swamped at his accounting firm. Megan lived 2 hours north with her husband Scott and their 2 children, my precious grandchildren whom I barely saw anymore. "What a lovely surprise," I said, ushering them into the living room. "Dinner won't be ready for another hour." "That's perfect," Jack said, exchanging a glance with his sister. "We actually wanted to talk to you about something." I busied myself making coffee, ignoring the knot forming in my stomach. Their unexpected visit suddenly made sense. They wanted something. We sat in the living room where countless birthday parties, Christmas mornings, and family gatherings had taken place. The floral couch was showing its age, but I couldn't bear to replace it. Frank and I had picked it out together 20 years ago. "So, how have you been, Mom?" Megan asked, her fingers fidgeting with her diamond tennis bracelet. "Any more falls?" "Last month, I had slipped while watering my garden. A minor incident that I'd mentioned in passing during our weekly phone call. I hadn't even bruised myself. "I'm fine, dear. That was nothing. Just lost my balance for a moment." "But it could have been serious," Jack interjected. "You live alone now. What if you had broken your hip?" I sipped my coffee. I have my alert button. I patted the device I wore around my neck, rarely used but a concession to their previous concerns. And Mrs. Peterson next door checks on me every day. "Mrs. Peterson is 80 herself," Megan said. "Mom, we've been worried. This house is too big for you to manage alone." "I manage just fine," I replied, feeling defensive. "I have my routine." Jack leaned forward, elbows on knees. "We've found a solution. A wonderful retirement community called Sunny Pines. It's beautiful, Mom," Megan added quickly. "Like a resort. They have activities, medical staff on site, and you'll be with people your own age." "My own age?" I echoed, setting down my coffee cup. "I have friends here, my garden club, my church group." Jack cleared his throat. "The thing is, Mom, we've already put down a deposit. There's an opening available next month." "Next month?" The room seemed to tilt slightly. "But I'm not ready to leave my home." There was a heavy pause before Jack spoke again. "Actually, Mom, we've already sold the house." The words hung in the air like a physical presence. "You what?" My voice came out as a whisper. "It was the perfect opportunity," Jack explained. "The market is hot right now, and we got well above asking price. The new owners need to move in within 2 weeks. 2 weeks? I repeated, feeling as though I'd stepped into someone else's nightmare. "You sold my house without telling me?" "It's for the best, Mom," Megan said, reaching for my hand. "This place has so many stairs, that dangerous basement laundry room. Remember how Dad always talked about you two downsizing eventually? Frank had mentioned that, years ago, before cancer took him. But we'd always imagined making that decision together, finding a smaller home that still belonged to us." "You had no right," I said, pulling my hand away. This is my home. Mom, you're getting older. We're just looking out for you, Jack said, his tone shifting to one he might use with his 6-year-old daughter. Dad would want you to be safe. I looked at their faces, these children I'd nursed through fevers, coached through homework, consoled through heartbreaks. I'd put my own dreams on hold to raise them, working part-time as a school librarian so I could be home when they needed me. Frank and I had saved carefully to put them through college without student loans. Now they sat in my living room, deciding my fate without my input. I thought about arguing, about calling a lawyer, about fighting for the home where every corner held memories of the life Frank and I had built. But the determined look in their eyes told me they'd already convinced themselves this was the right thing. And deep down, a small, traitorous part of me wondered if they were right. Was I being stubborn? Would I become a burden if I resisted? We'll help you pack, Megan offered, mistaking my silence for acceptance. And you can store whatever doesn't fit at Sunny Pines in our attics. I need some time to think, I managed to say. Of course, Jack agreed too readily. But we'll need to start packing soon. The moving company is scheduled for next Thursday. They'd already scheduled the movers. The betrayal cut deep, but I swallowed my protest. They were my children. They thought they were helping. At least that's what I told myself. After dinner, which none of us really ate, they took me through the house, discussing what furniture might fit in my new apartment. They'd already decided I would take my bedroom set, one small bookcase, and the recliner Frank had loved. Everything else would be sold or stored. That night, after they left with promises to return tomorrow with boxes, I sat alone in Frank's recliner, surrounded by the life we'd built together. I leafed through our wedding album, touching his young, smiling face. What would you do, Frank? I whispered to the empty room. But I knew. Frank would have fought. He never let anyone push him around, not even our children. But Frank wasn't here, and I was so very tired of being alone. I stayed up all night, moving from room to room, touching walls, door frames, windowsills, memorizing the feel of home. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of cardboard boxes, packing tape, and tears I tried to hide from my children. Every object I touched carried memories. The chipped blue mixing bowl where I'd made birthday cake batter for 30 years. The scratched coffee table where Jack had taken his first steps. The wall markings tracking my children's growth. Mom, we need to be ruthless, Megan said, dropping another stack of flattened boxes in the living room. The apartment at Sunny Pines is only 700 square feet. I nodded numbly, watching as she sorted through my treasures, designating most for the estate sale they'd already scheduled for the weekend. What about my Christmas decorations? I asked, gesturing to the boxes in the attic labeled in Frank's neat handwriting. You won't need those anymore, Jack said, not unkindly. The facility decorates all the common areas, and there won't be room in your apartment for a tree. No Christmas tree, no holiday baking for the neighbors, no grandchildren unwrapping presents on my living room floor. Another piece of my life, gone. Barbara, my friend of 30 years, came by on Wednesday, ostensibly to help pack, but really to check on me. We escaped to the back porch with mugs of tea, while Jack and Megan argued over the value of Frank's woodworking tools in the garage. Alethea, you don't have to do this, Barbara said, her lined face creased with concern. This is your house. You can say no. I stared into my tea. They've already sold it, Barb. The papers are signed. Without your signature? How is that possible? Her voice rose, and I shushed her, glancing toward the garage. Frank and I put the house in joint tenancy with them years ago, for inheritance purposes. I didn't think they'd use it against me. Barbara set her mug down hard. This isn't right, Alethea. They're treating you like a child, not their mother who sacrificed everything for them. Stand up for yourself. Her words stung because they echoed my own thoughts, the ones I'd been trying to silence. But what choice did I have? Where would I go? How would I start over at 67? I don't want to be a burden to them, I said, finally. Barbara snorted. Is that what they've convinced you? That you're a burden? You're healthy, independent, and perfectly capable. This is about them, not you. After she left, Her words kept circling in my mind. That evening, I decided to sort through the home office myself, needing some privacy with Frank's and my papers. In the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, I found a folder labeled Accounts that looked recently disturbed. Inside were bank statements for the joint account Frank and I had maintained for emergencies, the one I rarely touched since his death. According to the statements, over $30,000 had been withdrawn in the past 6 months, withdrawals I hadn't made. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. Each withdrawal coincided with Jack's visits to check on me. He'd been accessing my accounts without my knowledge. The betrayal was so complete that for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I took the statements to the kitchen where Jack was boxing up my dishes. "What's this, Jack?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. He glanced at the papers and something flickered across his face. "Just managing your accounts, Mom. Dad always said I should look after the finances when he was gone. By taking $30,000 without telling me? What was that for?" He sighed, setting down a wrapped plate. "Mom, your memory isn't what it used to be. We've discussed this. That money went toward Megan's roof repair and my daughter's braces. You agreed to help us." I had never agreed to any such thing. My memory was perfectly fine, despite what my children seemed determined to believe. But the ease of his lie told me everything I needed to know. "Of course," I said quietly, returning the statements to the folder. I must have forgotten. That night, I lay awake in the bedroom I'd shared with Frank for decades, knowing it would be my last night here. I thought about confronting them both, demanding my money back, refusing to leave. But the fight had gone out of me. Maybe this was just what happened when you got old. The world stopped treating you like an adult. Maybe Sunny Pines wouldn't be so bad. The final walkthrough of my empty house broke something inside me. Each room echoed with ghosts, Frank teaching Jack to tie his shoes on the bottom stair, Megan practicing dance routines in the living room, family game nights at the dining table, Frank and I slow dancing in the kitchen on our anniversary. All these memories would belong to strangers now. "Ready, Mom?" Megan asked, jingling her car keys. The moving truck already left for Sunny Pines. I took one last look around, touching the doorframe where Frank and I had carved our initials on our first anniversary. Then I walked out, carrying only my purse and a small suitcase of clothing. Everything else had been decided for me. During the 30-minute drive to Sunny Pines, Jack and Megan chatted excitedly about their upcoming plans. Jack's family vacation to Hawaii, Megan's kitchen renovation. Neither seemed to notice my silence in the back seat. Sunny Pines' retirement community looked nothing like the glossy brochure Megan had shown me. The brochure had featured spacious private apartments, elegant dining rooms, and smiling seniors playing golf. The reality was a 3-story brick building with narrow windows, surrounded by a parking lot with a small patch of struggling grass labeled garden area on a faded sign. The lobby smelled of antiseptic and overcooked vegetables. A receptionist with tired eyes had me sign a stack of papers without explaining them. "Your children already handled most of the arrangements," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. My apartment turned out to be half of a shared room, divided by a thin curtain. My roommate, Eleanor, was a frail woman of 72 with rheumy eyes and thinning white hair. She nodded when introduced, but said nothing until Jack and Megan left to retrieve the last of my boxes from the car. "They won't come back much," she said then, her voice surprisingly strong. "Mine haven't visited in 8 months. My children aren't like that," I said automatically. "They've promised to visit every week." Eleanor's laugh turned into a cough. "Honey, they all promise that. But once they've got what they want, your house, your money, your possessions, they forget all about you. Welcome to God's waiting room." I unpacked my meager belongings in silence after that, arranging my few permitted photos on the small dresser. Jack and Megan helped half-heartedly, clearly anxious to leave. The cheerful manner they'd maintained during the drive had evaporated in the institutional atmosphere. "We should get going," Jack said finally, checking his watch. "I promised Andrea I'd be home for dinner. The staff will help you settle in," Megan added, gathering her purse. "And we'll be back on Sunday to visit." They hugged me briefly, neither meeting my eyes. Then they were gone, their footsteps echoing down the hallway, their voices rising in animated conversation as soon as they thought I couldn't hear. That first night was the longest of my life. The narrow bed with its thin mattress bore no resemblance to the comfortable queen-sized bed I'd shared with Frank. Eleanor snored softly across the room. Down the hall, someone moaned repeatedly, the sound punctuated by the squeak of rubber-soled shoes as night staff moved about. I lay awake until dawn, a tear sliding silently into my hair, wondering how my life had come to this. Life at Sunny Pines quickly settled into a monotonous routine governed by bells, announcements, and the perpetual smell of institutional cooking. Breakfast at 7, medications at 7:30, morning activities at 9, lunch at noon, afternoon rest period, dinner at 5, evening television in the common room until 8, lights out at 10, over and over, day after day. The promised weekly visits from Jack and Megan became monthly, then sporadic. They always had excuses, work commitments, the children's activities, car trouble. When they did come, they sat awkwardly in the common room, making small talk and checking their watches. Eleanor had been right, though I refused to admit it to her. She, Florence, and Dorothy became my reluctant companions, the four of us gravitating together during mealtimes and activities, bound by our shared circumstances, if not genuine friendship. My Arthur put me here 5 years ago, Florence confided during a craft session where we were making paper flowers that would decorate the dining room tables. Said he couldn't take care of me anymore after my stroke. Found himself a girlfriend half my age within 6 months. Dorothy nodded sagely. My daughter Janet said it was temporary, just until she finished her home renovations and could build me a mother-in-law suite. That was 3 years ago. The renovations are done, but suddenly there's no money for my suite. I kept my own story to myself at first, still loyal to my children despite everything. But as October turned to November, and my birthday came and went with only a hasty phone call from Megan, something hardened inside me. On a cold Tuesday in December, 4 months after my arrival, Jack came alone for a brief visit. We sat in the cheerless visitors' lounge, surrounded by artificial poinsettias and a tinny recording of Christmas carols. "Where's Megan?" I asked, already knowing she wouldn't be coming. "Busy with holiday preparations," Jack said vaguely. "She sends her love." I nodded, too tired to challenge the lie. "How are the grandkids? Will I see them for Christmas?" Jack shifted uncomfortably. "Actually, Mom, that's partly why I came today. We've decided to take the kids to Disney World for Christmas this year. It's Andrea's family tradition, and you know how important that is to her." I stared at him, this stranger who looked like my son. "So I'll be here for Christmas?" "The staff puts on a great holiday party," he said brightly. "And we'll come see you for New Year's, I promise." He stayed only 20 minutes, most of which he spent on his phone handling a work emergency. As he prepared to leave, I asked him about my monthly allowance, which had been part of our agreement, but had yet to materialize. "I've been meaning to talk to you about that," he said, not meeting my eyes. "With Megan's roof repair and my boat loan, we're a little stretched right now. But we'll catch up soon, I promise." "Your boat loan?" I repeated, my voice rising slightly. "Are you using my money to buy a boat, Jack?" His face flushed. "It's not like that, Mom. We're just moving some funds around temporarily. The boat is an investment, really. We can take you out on it next summer." After he left, I sat alone in the visitors' lounge long after dinner had been announced, too upset to eat. A gentle hand on my shoulder finally roused me. "Miss Williams, are you all right?" It was Sarah, one of the younger nurses, whose kind eyes and patient manner set her apart from most of the overworked staff. "I'm fine," I said automatically, though my trembling hands betrayed me. Sarah sat beside me. "You know, refusing dinner is only punishing yourself. Your son is probably enjoying a nice restaurant meal right now." The blunt truth of her words startled a laugh out of me. "You're probably right. Come on," she said, helping me up. "I saved you a plate in the staff room. Much better than what they're serving in the dining hall tonight." That simple act of kindness broke through the wall I'd built around myself. As we ate reheated lasagna in the small staff break room, I found myself telling Sarah everything: the house, the bank accounts, the broken promises. "That's financial abuse," she said, matter-of-factly, when I finished. "And unfortunately it's common. But you don't have to accept it, Miss Williams." "Call me Alethea, please," I said. "And what choice do I have? I have no home, no money of my own anymore." "You have more power than you think," Sarah replied. "Start by joining some activities here. Make connections. Then we can talk about next steps." Though skeptical, I followed her advice, forcing myself to attend art therapy sessions and the book club that met in the small library. That's where I met Thomas Gardner, a fellow resident who'd moved to Sunny Pines by choice after his wife died. Thomas was 70, tall and still handsome, with a shock of white hair and intelligent blue eyes. A retired literature professor, he led the book club discussions with enthusiasm and respect for everyone's opinions, even Florence, who rarely finished the books but enjoyed the social aspect. "Ah, a new face," he exclaimed, the first day I slipped into the back row. "And what did you think of Steinbeck's portrayal of the American dream, Miss?" "Williams. Alethea Williams," I said, surprised to be addressed directly. "I think he showed both its promise and its cruelty, how it can inspire people but also break them." Thomas's eyes lit up. "Exactly. The duality of hope and disillusionment. Please, join us again next week. We're discussing To Kill a Mockingbird." For the first time since arriving at Sunny Pines, I found myself looking forward to something. Thomas's book club led to conversations in the dining hall, which led to walks around the small property when weather permitted. He treated me like a person, not a burden or an obligation. He asked about my life before Sunny Pines, and actually listened to my answers. Meanwhile, Sarah encouraged me to try the art therapy class, run by a local artist named Patrick, who volunteered his time twice a week. "I was never artistic," I protested. "Frank was the creative one." "Just try it," Sarah insisted. "What else are you going to do with your Tuesday afternoons? Watch another rerun of Family Feud with Florence?" The first art class was awkward. I sat stiffly before the easel, embarrassed by my trembling hand and uncertain strokes. But Patrick was patient, showing me techniques without judgment. "Don't worry about making it look like anything," he advised. "Just feel the brush, the paint, the paper. Let your emotions guide your hand." By the third class, something had shifted. I found myself losing track of time as I painted, my frustration and anger flowing through the brush onto the canvas. Patrick noticed the change. "There's real emotion in your work, Alethea," he said, studying my abstract composition of dark blues and angry reds. "Have you ever painted before?" I shook my head. Never had the time. I was busy raising children, supporting my husband's career. "Well, it's your time now," he said simply. January arrived cold and bleak. No visit from Jack and Megan for New Year's, despite the promise. Just a generic gift basket of bath products delivered by courier, with a card signed by the whole family in Jack's handwriting. Eleanor's health was declining, her breathing more labored, her periods of confusion more frequent. Watching her, I realized that this could be my future, slowly fading away, forgotten by my family, with only overworked staff to mark my passing. The thought terrified me. One night, after a particularly bad dream where I was calling for help but no one could hear me, I found myself in the hallway in my nightgown, disoriented and tearful. Sarah found me there during her night rounds. "Alethea? What are you doing up?" I couldn't form the words, could only shake my head as tears streamed down my face. Sarah led me to the small break room and made me tea. "This isn't working for you, is it?" she asked gently. "I'm dying here," I whispered. "Not my body. Me. Everything I am." Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. "Then, let's do something about it." Sarah became my unexpected ally in what she called Operation Reclaim Your Life. It began with computer lessons in the rarely used media center, where 3 outdated desktops sat gathering dust. "First step, get you digitally literate," she declared during our first session. "Knowledge is power, especially in your situation." I felt foolish at first, struggling with the mouse, accidentally closing windows, typing with 2 hesitant fingers. But Sarah was patient, and gradually I improved. She showed me how to set up an email account, navigate search engines, and most importantly, access online banking. Your children may have taken control of your accounts, she explained, but they can't hide the activity. Banks keep digital records of everything. Sure enough, when I finally logged into my account using the credentials Sarah helped me recover, the truth was laid bare in black and white. Regular withdrawals, transfers to Jack and Megan's personal accounts, a steady draining of the savings Frank and I had built over decades. $30,000 was just the beginning, I said, my voice hollow as I scrolled through transaction after transaction. They've taken over $100,000 in the past year. Sarah's expression hardened. This is clear financial exploitation, Alethea. It's not just wrong, it's illegal. The revelation should have crushed me, but instead, it ignited something I hadn't felt in months. Anger. Pure, clarifying anger that burned away the fog of depression and resignation. What do I do? I asked. One step at a time, Sarah advised. Keep gathering information, build your strength, and find your voice again. I threw myself into Patrick's art classes with new purpose. No longer tentative, I painted with bold strokes, creating images that expressed my journey from betrayal to awakening. Patrick noticed the change immediately. There's power in your work now, he observed, studying my latest canvas, a woman emerging from shadows into light. You're finding your voice. I'm finding myself, I corrected. The self I buried, trying to be the perfect mother, the grieving widow, the compliant elderly parent. Patrick tilted his head, considering both me and the painting. You know, the community center is hosting an art show next month. Local artists, all experience levels. Would you consider submitting something? The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. I'm not a real artist, I protested. What makes a real artist? Patrick challenged. Someone who creates from their soul. That's exactly what you're doing. Meanwhile, my friendship with Thomas deepened beyond literary discussions. We began taking our meals together, sharing stories of our earlier lives. I told him about Frank, our love story that spanned nearly 5 decades. He spoke of his Elaine, lost to cancer 10 years ago, and his academic career teaching American literature to generations of college students. I never expected to find friendship like this at Sunny Pines, I admitted one evening as we shared a contraband bottle of wine Sarah had smuggled in for us. We sat in the small garden, bundled against the February chill, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Nor did I, Thomas said, his blue eyes crinkling at the corners. It's rather miraculous, finding connection at our age, in this place of all places. Something in his tone made me look at him more closely. The warmth in his gaze suggested more than friendship, and for the first time since Frank's death, I felt a flutter of possibility. The moment was interrupted by my phone ringing, a basic cell phone Sarah had helped me purchase and learn to use. Alethea? It's James Gardner, Thomas's son. The voice was professional but kind. Yes, James. Thomas mentioned you might call. Thomas had told me his son was an attorney specializing in elder law, and with Thomas's encouragement, I'd agreed to speak with him about my situation. I've reviewed the information you shared, James continued. The bank statements, the house sale documents. I won't sugarcoat this, Alethea. What your children have done constitutes elder financial abuse. You have legal options. My hand trembled as I held the phone. What kind of options? We could file for conservatorship to regain control of your finances. We could challenge the house sale as it was executed under duress. We could potentially file criminal charges for the financial exploitation. Criminal charges against my own children. The thought made me physically ill. I don't know if I can do that, I whispered. You don't have to decide tonight, James assured me. Think about it. We can start small, with a formal letter demanding return of funds. Sometimes that's enough to resolve the situation. After ending the call, I sat in silence, watching the last light fade from the sky. Thomas waited patiently beside me. I never imagined I'd be considering legal action against my own children, I finally said. They chose their actions, Thomas replied gently. Now you get to choose yours. That night, I couldn't sleep, my mind racing with possibilities and fears. Was I overreacting? Would legal action destroy any chance of reconciliation? But then again, what kind of relationship did we have now, built on lies and exploitation? While these questions tortured me, I continued my daily routine at Sunny Pines. I painted feverishly, preparing pieces for the community art show. I joined Sarah for computer lessons, gradually mastering online banking, email, and even social media. And something unexpected happened. I began to see glimpses of a future beyond betrayal and bitterness. A future with friendships, creative pursuits, maybe even romance if the way Thomas looked at me meant what I thought it did. A week before the community art show, Patrick helped me select 3 pieces to display. These tell a powerful story, he said, arranging them side by side, from darkness to light, from confinement to freedom. It's your journey, Alethea. I studied the paintings, seeing my transformation captured in color and form. The first, dark and chaotic, expressed my initial despair. The second showed structures breaking apart, control slipping. The third depicted a woman standing tall, face turned toward the Sunday. I need to title them, I realized. Patrick nodded. Something that captures their meaning to you. After considering, I wrote on small cards, betrayed, awakening, and reclaiming. Together, they told the story I was still living. The day before the art show, Jack called for the first time in 2 months. Mom, we need to talk about your spending, he began without preamble. I just got a notification that you've opened a new bank account. What's going on? The old Alethea would have apologized, explained, tried to smooth things over. The new Alethea took a deep breath and said, Yes, we do need to talk, Jack. About the $100,000 you and Megan have taken from my accounts. There was a stunned silence, then blustering. That's ridiculous. We've been managing your finances for your own good. You're confused, Mom. I'm not confused, I said calmly. I have bank statements, Jack. I know exactly what's happening. Who's been filling your head with these ideas? He demanded. Is it the staff there? Because we can find somewhere else for you to live if they're causing problems. His threatening tone, so at odds with his words of concern, confirmed everything. This wasn't about my well-being. It never had been. I think we'll continue this conversation with my attorney present, I said, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. Attorney? Mom, don't be ridiculous. We're family. We don't need lawyers. Apparently we do, I replied, and ended the call. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. For the first time in too long, I felt powerful. I had spoken my truth, and the world hadn't ended. In fact, it felt like it was just beginning. The community art show transformed everything. Held in the bright atrium of the local library, it featured works from artists of all ages and skill levels. My 3 paintings were displayed in a small corner, their stark, emotional journey standing out among landscapes and still lifes. I stood nervously beside them, wearing a blue dress Sarah had helped me choose, my hair freshly styled. Thomas was my steadfast companion, dapper in a tweed jacket with a blue pocket square that matched my dress. They're remarkable, Alethea, a woman said, studying my paintings intently. The emotional progression is so powerful. I thanked her, still uncomfortable with praise for this newfound talent. Patrick had insisted I attach small price tags to the paintings artists deserve compensation for their work. He'd explained, though I never expected anyone would actually purchase them. I was wrong. By the end of the evening, all 3 paintings had sold to different buyers. One woman, a local gallery owner named Victoria, asked if I had more work to show. These speak to anyone who's ever had to reclaim their power, she said. Particularly women of a certain age. There's an audience for this perspective. The unexpected success boosted my confidence immeasurably. More importantly, the income, modest but meaningful, gave me a first taste of financial independence since moving to Sunny Pines. What will you do with your earnings? Thomas asked as we shared a celebratory dinner at a small restaurant near the library, a rare evening away from Sunny Pines arranged by Sarah. I considered the question. Save it. Build on it. It's the beginning of my freedom fund. Thomas reached across the table and took my hand. I'm proud of you, Alethea. Not many people would find such strength after what you've been through. His touch sent warmth through me, a feeling I'd thought was gone forever after Frank died. I couldn't have done it without you. And Sarah. And Patrick. You had the strength all along, he insisted. We just helped you remember it. The following week brought another surprise. Amanda, a reporter from the local newspaper, had attended the art show and wanted to interview me about my work and the story behind it. I write a regular column on senior issues, she explained when she visited me at Sunny Pines. Your paintings touched on something important, the invisibility many seniors feel, the loss of agency. Would you be willing to share your experience? I hesitated. Going public meant my children would surely see it. Was I ready for that confrontation? You don't have to name names, Amanda assured me, sensing my concern. This isn't about exposing individuals. It's about highlighting a pervasive issue many seniors face. With that understanding, I agreed. The resulting article, titled Reclaiming Dignity, One Woman's Artistic Journey Through Elder Displacement, was sensitively written and powerfully honest. Amanda captured my story without sensationalism, focusing on the broader issues of elder autonomy, family communication, and finding purpose in later life. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Emails flooded the account Sarah had helped me create, mostly from seniors in similar situations or their advocates. Some shared their own stories of displacement and financial exploitation. Others offered support and encouragement. Patrick, seeing the response, suggested creating prints of my paintings to sell online. Your work resonates with people, Alethea. It could provide both income and purpose. With Sarah's technical help and Thomas's business acumen, he'd managed university departments with substantial budgets, we set up a simple online store. We started small, with prints of my existing paintings and a few new pieces I created specifically for the project. Orders began trickling in, then flowing steadily. Each sale represented not just income, but validation. My experience, translated through art, was touching others. My pain had found purpose. As winter gave way to spring, another change blossomed. Thomas and I, through countless conversations, shared meals, and collaborative projects, had grown increasingly close. One evening, as we walked slowly through the small Sunny Pines garden where early daffodils pushed through the soil, he stopped and turned to me. Alethea, I never expected to feel this way again at my age, he said, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. But these past months with you have brought joy back into my life. My heart raced like a schoolgirl's. I feel the same, I admitted. After Frank died, I thought that part of my life was over. It doesn't have to be, Thomas said, gently taking both my hands in his. I'm not trying to replace Frank, just as you could never replace Elaine. But perhaps we could build something new together. Our first kiss, there among the daffodils, was tentative and sweet. At our age, romance felt both familiar and brand new, weighted with life experience, yet unburdened by youthful insecurities. We knew who we were. We knew what mattered. The peaceful progress of my new life was interrupted in early April when Jack appeared unannounced at Sunny Pines. His face was tight with anger as he demanded to speak with me privately. "What is this, Mom?" he demanded, thrusting a printout of Amanda's article at me once we were seated in the visitors' lounge. "Do you have any idea how this makes our family look?" I regarded him calmly, noting the designer watch on his wrist and the custom suit that probably cost more than my monthly Sunny Pines fee. "The article doesn't mention you or Megan by name, and it's factually accurate. You've frozen the accounts," he accused, his voice rising. "We can't access any of the funds." "Your unauthorized access has been terminated," I corrected. "They're my accounts, Jack. My money. We were managing them for you." "You were stealing from me," I replied, keeping my voice level despite my racing heart. $153,000 in 14 months. For a boat. For vacations. For kitchen renovations. Not for my care or well-being. His face flushed dark red. This is ridiculous. You're confused. Manipulated by the staff here. I have statements, Jack. I have documentation. I have an attorney. This isn't confusion. It's clarity. He leaned forward, his expression shifting from anger to calculation. Mom, think about this. If you push this, it will affect your relationship with your grandchildren. Is that what you want? To tear the family apart over money? The emotional blackmail was so transparent it almost made me laugh. I'm not tearing anything apart, Jack. I'm simply reclaiming what's rightfully mine. And if you're using your children as pawns in this situation, that's on your conscience, not mine. He left in a fury, promises of legal action and family estrangement trailing behind him. I should have been devastated, but instead I felt lighter. The confrontation I'd dreaded was over, and I had stood my ground. Thomas found me in the garden afterward, staring at the daffodils now in full bloom. Are you all right? He asked, settling beside me on the bench. Surprisingly, yes, I said. It's strange. I spent months afraid of losing my children, not realizing I'd already lost them the moment they decided I was a resource to be managed rather than a person to be respected. Thomas nodded thoughtfully. There's grief in that realization, but freedom too. Freedom, I repeated, tasting the word. Yes, that's exactly it. I'm free from trying to earn their love or approval. Free to build a life that serves my needs and honors my worth. He took my hand, his palm warm against mine. Speaking of building a life, I've been thinking. Sunny Pines isn't the only option for seniors like us. What do you mean? There are independent living communities, apartments with support services but full autonomy, places where we're residents, not patients. The possibility unfurled before me like the spring flowers. Could we afford that? Thomas smiled. With your growing art business, my pension, and the funds your attorney is recovering. Yes, I believe we could. Together. Together. The word held promise and possibility. Not a return to my old life, but the creation of something new and unexpected. I'd like that, I said simply. James Gardner, Thomas's son, and now my attorney, arranged a formal meeting with Jack and Megan at Sunny Pines in late April. My children arrived with their own lawyer, a sleek woman in an expensive suit who introduced herself as Caroline Reed. We gathered in the small conference room normally used for staff meetings. Sarah had arranged coffee and water and stayed nearby in case any medical issues arise, though we both knew her presence was moral support. James laid out the evidence methodically. Bank statements, withdrawal records, documentation of the house sale. The facts are clear, he concluded. Over the past 18 months, you've systematically diverted $353,000 from your mother's accounts for personal use, sold her house without proper consent, and moved her to a facility against her wishes. Jack and Megan exchanged glances, their lawyer whispering something to them. That's not how we see it, Caroline responded coolly. My clients were managing funds for a parent showing early signs of cognitive decline. Their actions were protective, not exploitative. Interesting theory, James replied. Unfortunately, there's no medical documentation supporting cognitive decline. In fact, Miss Williams recently passed a comprehensive cognitive assessment with flying colors. This was true. At James's suggestion, I had undergone evaluation by a geriatric specialist, partly to establish my competence for legal purposes, partly to refute any claims Jack and Megan might make about my mental capacity. Furthermore, James continued, the pattern of withdrawals directly correlates to luxury purchases, a 38-foot boat, a kitchen renovation featuring imported Italian marble, a family vacation to Hawaii. None of these expenditures benefited Miss Williams. Caroline leaned forward. What exactly are you seeking here? Full restitution of misappropriated funds, plus legal fees, James stated. Alternative living arrangements of Miss Williams' choosing, at her children's expense for a period of 2 years, and a formal acknowledgement of wrongdoing. That's outrageous, Jack burst out. We're not criminals. James raised an eyebrow. Financial elder abuse is, in fact, criminal. We're offering a civil resolution out of respect for family relationships. But make no mistake, we're prepared to pursue criminal charges if necessary. Megan, who had been silent until now, began to cry. Mom, please. We were just trying to take care of you. Things got out of hand. I looked at my daughter, truly looked at her, perhaps for the first time in years. The designer clothing, the diamond earrings, the perfectly maintained appearance, all financed at least partially with my money, while I wore second-hand clothes at Sunny Pines. Taking care of me would have involved asking what I wanted, I said quietly. It would have meant including me in decisions about my home, my money, my life. You didn't take care of me. You took care of yourselves. 2 years of assisted living costs would bankrupt us, Jack argued. And we don't have $300,000 to return. It's gone. The boat isn't gone, I pointed out. The kitchen remodel isn't gone. Your investment portfolio, partially funded with my money, isn't gone. Caroline conferred with my children in whispers, then outlined a counterproposal. A payment plan for partial restitution, continued residence at Sunny Pines with them covering the costs, monthly visits with my grandchildren. Not acceptable, James replied. Miss Williams has no desire to remain at Sunny Pines. And partial restitution for deliberate financial exploitation isn't on the table. The negotiations continued for nearly 2 hours. Throughout, I remained calm, speaking only when necessary, letting James handle the legal aspects. Inside, though, my emotions churned anger at their entitlement, sadness for what our family had become, determination to reclaim my dignity. Finally, Caroline requested a private moment with her clients. They left the room, returning 15 minutes later with reddened eyes and subdued demeanors. We'll liquidate the boat, Jack said stiffly, and Megan will take out a home equity loan. We can return $200,000 immediately, with a payment plan for the remainder. And we'll cover the costs of wherever Mom chooses to live for 2 years, Megan added, her voice barely audible. That's a start, James acknowledged. But we'll need the acknowledgement of wrongdoing in writing and legal provisions to prevent any similar actions in the future. By the end of the meeting, we had a preliminary agreement. James would draft the formal documents, but the essential terms were set. My children would make financial restitution. I would have the resources to live independently. And, while our relationship lay in tatters, at least there was a foundation of truth on which we might someday rebuild. As they prepared to leave, Megan paused beside my chair. I'm sorry, Mom, she whispered. We never meant for things to go this far. I looked up at my daughter, seeing for a moment the little girl who'd once run to me for comfort after every fall. Intentions matter, Megan, but actions matter more. That evening, emotionally drained but resolute, I sat with Thomas in the small Sunny Pines garden. The spring air was mild, scented with blooming lilacs from the neighboring property. How do you feel? Thomas asked, his arm comfortable around my shoulders. I considered the question carefully, sad, relieved, determined. All valid, he said. This isn't the end of the story, Alethea. It's just the beginning of a new chapter. He was right. The confrontation with my children had cleared the air, established boundaries, and reclaimed what was rightfully mine. But it hadn't brought healing, not yet. That would take time, and work from all sides. Meanwhile, life continued to unfold in unexpected ways. The following week, Sarah helped us visit Golden Years Apartments, an independent living community 15 miles away. Unlike Sunny Pines, Golden Years offered private apartments with kitchens, minimal rules, and support services available, but not imposed. Residents here live independently, the manager explained, as she showed us a sunlit one-bedroom unit. We have emergency call buttons, weekly housekeeping if desired, a dining room for those who prefer not to cook, and transportation services. But your time is your own. Thomas and I exchanged glances, both thinking the same thing. This could be home. Do you have 2 units available? Thomas asked. Preferably adjacent? The manager smiled knowingly. As a matter of fact, we do. Apartments 312 and 314 will be vacant next month. They share a small balcony overlooking the garden. Back at Sunny Pines, I shared the news with Eleanor, Florence, and Dorothy. Eleanor's health had stabilized, though she remained frail. "You're escaping," Florence said, half joking, half envious. "Don't forget us little people." "I'll visit," I promised. "And I'll report back on what independent living is really like." The conversation turned serious when Eleanor described her recent experience with inadequate medical care. "I told them my chest pain was different this time," she said. "They gave me an antacid and told me to lie down. If Sarah hadn't checked on me, who knows what would have happened." Similar stories emerged: medication errors, ignored call buttons, incomplete care. The problem stemmed not from malice, but from systemic issues: understaffing, underpayment, inadequate training. "Someone should do something," Dorothy said. "Someone will," I replied, an idea forming. The next day, I contacted Amanda, the reporter who had written about my art. "I have another story for you," I said, "about conditions at certain nursing homes and the residents who have no voice." Amanda was immediately interested. "An investigative piece? With multiple sources?" "Yes, and documentation." Sarah had been keeping records of incidents, staff shortages, and administrative responses. "This could make a difference," Amanda said. "Not just for your facility, but potentially at a policy level." Within 2 weeks, Amanda's comprehensive investigation was published, highlighting systemic issues while acknowledging the dedicated staff working in difficult conditions. The response was immediate. State regulators announced an unscheduled inspection of Sunny Pines and similar facilities. The parent company issued statements promising reforms. Small improvements began almost immediately: additional staff hired, more thorough training implemented, a new grievance procedure established. They were just first steps, but meaningful ones. "You did this," Sarah told me during one of our final computer lessons before my planned move. "You found your voice and used it to help others." "We did this," I corrected her, "and it's just the beginning." Moving day arrived bright and clear in early June. My new apartment at Golden Years was modest but perfect. A living room with large windows overlooking a small pond, a functional kitchen, a bedroom large enough for my restored antique bed, and a bathroom with safety features that didn't scream elderly. Thomas's apartment next door mirrored mine, with a connecting balcony where we placed matching rocking chairs and a small table for morning coffee. We had decided to maintain separate residences, while deepening our relationship a perfect balance of togetherness and independence. The move itself was joyful chaos. Sarah came on her day off to help, as did Patrick and James. Eleanor, Florence, and Dorothy threw a farewell party the night before, presenting me with a hand-knitted throw for my new home. "Don't forget the little people," Florence repeated, hugging me tightly. "Come back and visit us troublemakers." "Every week," I promised. "And I'll bring cookies." My newly recovered finances had allowed me to replace some basics clothing, personal items, a few pieces of furniture. The rest I would acquire gradually, building a home that reflected my current self rather than my past. The second bedroom in my apartment became my studio, filled with natural light from east-facing windows. Patrick helped set it up with an easel, proper lighting, and storage for supplies. My online business had grown steadily, with orders coming in regularly for prints and occasionally for original works. Thomas and I settled into a comfortable routine. Separate mornings, he with his books and writing, me with my painting, followed by shared afternoons exploring our new community or visiting friends at Sunny Pines. Evenings brought dinner either cooked in one of our kitchens or enjoyed in the community dining room, then conversation on our shared balcony as the sun set. A month after our move, the publisher of a regional art magazine contacted me. "We'd like to feature your work in our Emerging Artists section," the editor explained. "Your perspective on late-life transformation resonates with our readers." The resulting article led to more visibility, more sales, and eventually an unexpected opportunity. A children's book publisher reached out, asking if I would consider illustrating a series about a grandmother and grandchild going on adventures. Your style has emotional depth while remaining accessible, the publisher explained. Perfect for stories that bridge generations. The irony wasn't lost on me. My own grandchildren remained distant, though Jack and Megan had begun making cautious attempts at reconciliation, prompted partly by the legal settlement, and partly, I hoped, by genuine remorse. Their first visit to my new apartment was awkward but necessary. They arrived together, bearing houseplants and forced smiles, clearly shocked by the transformation in my circumstances. "This is nice," Megan said, looking around the sunlit living room with its view of the pond. "Very different from Sunny Pines." "That's the point," I replied, offering coffee and cookies I'd baked that morning in my own kitchen. Jack seemed particularly uncomfortable, avoiding my eyes as he examined the artwork on my walls. "These are yours?" he asked, gesturing to a series of small landscapes. "Yes, I've discovered I have some talent." I kept my tone neutral, neither accusing nor forgiving. We had a long road ahead to rebuild trust, and it would require honesty on all sides. "We've brought the first restitution payment," Jack said, finally, placing an envelope on the coffee table, and the papers for the boat sale. "Thank you," I said simply. "Mom, Megan began, then faltered. "We're sorry. We thought we were doing what was best for you, but we were wrong. So wrong." I studied my daughter's face, seeing genuine regret mixed with embarrassment. "Yes, you were, but acknowledging that is the first step toward making things right." The visit lasted only 30 minutes, but it opened a door that had been firmly closed. They promised to bring the grandchildren next time. I neither fully believed nor disbelieved the promise. Time would tell. Thomas joined me after they left, having tactfully made himself scarce during the visit. "How did it go?" he asked, settling beside me on the sofa. "As well as could be expected," I replied. "It's a start." He took my hand, his fingers warm and reassuring against mine. "I have something to ask you," he said, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "Yes?" "We've known each other less than a year, but at our age, time takes on different meaning." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Alethea, would you consider marrying me?" "Not immediately, but perhaps by Christmas?" The question shouldn't have surprised me, given the depth of our connection, yet it did. After Frank's death, I had never imagined sharing my life with someone new. "I'm not trying to replace Frank," Thomas added quickly. "Just as I could never replace Elaine," I finished for him. "I know, Thomas, and yes, I would consider it. In fact, I've already decided. Yes." His smile lit up his entire face, the joy of a 72-year-old man who had found unexpected love in what society often dismisses as the twilight years. We sealed our engagement with a kiss, sitting in the apartment that represented my reclaimed independence. The following year brought changes I could never have anticipated during those dark early days at Sunny Pines. My art career flourished, with gallery representation in 3 cities and the children's book series proceeding smoothly. Thomas and I married in a small ceremony in the Golden Years garden, surrounded by friends both old and new. Sarah was my maid of honor, Patrick, an enthusiastic best man. My relationship with Jack and Megan remained complicated but improving. Family therapy sessions, though often difficult, had opened channels of communication long blocked by unspoken resentments and expectations. The grandchildren visited regularly now, delighting in my stories and art lessons. On the 1-year anniversary of my move to Golden Years, I hosted a gallery opening featuring a new series titled Renewal. The collection told the story of my journey from betrayal to awakening, from loss to reclamation, from isolation to connection. But unlike my earlier work, these pieces looked forward rather than back, celebrating possibility rather than mourning loss. Jack and Megan attended with their families, standing somewhat uncomfortably among the art crowd but making the effort. Thomas remained by my side throughout, his quiet strength and genuine pride in my accomplishments, a constant reminder of how far I'd come. As the evening wound down, Megan approached me alone. "Mom, I need to say something," she began hesitantly. "Watching you this past year, your art, your marriage, the life you've built, I realize how wrong we were. Not just about the money and the house, but about what you needed, what you were capable of. I regarded my daughter carefully, seeing in her face a new humility. We often underestimate people as they age, I said. We see what they can't do rather than what they can, what they've lost, rather than what they've gained. I see it now, she said, and I hope someday you can truly forgive us. I'm working on it, I replied honestly. Forgiveness is a process, not an event, but we're heading in the right direction. Later that night, Thomas and I sat on our shared balcony, watching stars emerge in the velvet sky. Happy? He asked, his hand warm in mine. Beyond anything I could have imagined a year ago, I answered truthfully. Looking back over my journey from the devastating news of my children's betrayal to this moment of peace and fulfillment, I realized I had learned something profound. Life never stops offering possibilities for renewal, for reinvention, for joy. Even in our 70s, even after betrayal and loss, we can build something beautiful and meaningful. The key isn't youth or money or even family support. It's courage. The courage to face hard truths, to reclaim your power, to reinvent yourself when necessary. The courage to believe that your story isn't over until you say it is. So if you're facing betrayal, transition, or loss, remember my story. Remember that endings can become beginnings. Remember that it's never too late to reclaim your life and your dignity. The journey may be painful, but the destination, self-reclamation, purpose, perhaps even unexpected love, is worth every difficult step. Have you ever had to reinvent yourself later in life? Or stood up against family pressure to reclaim your independence? Share your story in the comments below. And if my journey resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and renewal, and share with someone who might need encouragement today. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, our greatest chapters often come after we think the book is closed.